Are you ready? Let's go!
Don't you sometimes just want to talk about everything? You know, there's days when you can just talk about anything. Need to sit back and chat about nothing at all? Nothing But Julie, coming at you with fun and creative topics and interviews.
Did you hear Julie's podcast? She's got the greatest topics.
Come join the chat about everything, anything, and nothing. So unwind and tune in to Nothing But Julie. Great topics and cool interviews with some pretty awesome people. And now, without further delay, here's Nothing But Julie.
It's Julie Schrag and Rhonda Marie with the podcast Nothing But Julie. Hope you're all well and you all had a wonderful holiday celebration and you all stayed safe. What's up, Rhonda?
Hey, Julie. How are you?
I'm doing great. How was your holiday?
It was really good. Really good. It was small and quiet.
Perfect. Just how I like things
Yes,
to be
exactly.
lately. I'm getting very used to, smaller, get-togethers and not really being out and doing much. And I know we spoke about this once before, but I really do like it. I feel like there's no pressure having to like meet people or get dressed up and wear makeup and do the hair.
Yes.
I can't remember the last time I really did my hair.
Oh, I know.
I mean, my husband and I went to some outdoor restaurant a couple of weeks ago. My hair was up as usual. I mean, because it's not like I'm going for like a dinner with friends. I was outdoors. It was windy. Wear my hair in a bun.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how my hair looks every day.
Oh, I've seen your TikToks and I see some of your videos. You look really good.
I cut it short. That way I wouldn't have to worry about it as much. I cut it off up to my shoulders. That way I can just brush it real fast and it doesn't look as wild. So I can leave it down.
Do you have naturally straight hair?
I do.
You do. It's my hair is
straight.
My hair is the total opposite. So it's funny when you say I could just, cut my hair and, put a comb through it or a brush through it. My brush would get stuck and I wouldn't be able to find it in my hair. And I have really, really long hair too. But I've been thinking about, cutting it, but, because it gets curlier the shorter it is. So I still have to keep it somewhat long
to pull the weight, right?
Right. And also because it's curly, the shorter I cut it, the shorter it's going to look with the curls,
Right.
But no matter what, my hair is so thick that when I straighten it, like a day or two later, it starts getting knotty, so it's like, but I remember when I was younger, my hair was maybe like a little bit past my shoulders, but it felt like there was like a 20-pound weight loss from just cutting so much hair. It was down to my lower back, which it's almost there now again. It's out of control. It's
out of control. Well,
it's just totally
I always wanted curly hair until I got older and saw how much more work it was.
It's a lot of work. And you know what? A lot of product goes into it. And my hair just does not look good without product or different kinds of products. And I mean, I've run the gamut and I like using as much like natural stuff as I can. And it's very hard to come by. And when you find it, it's very expensive, so that, but honestly, since the pandemic and I'm a dog walker, I usually pull my hair up and the only time it's really ever down is if I were to go out at night, which means it's up all the time now. So I think that, as I get older, it's probably going to get shorter and shorter and maybe layered. So there's like just less work. I could just, let it dry naturally and just leave the house.
That's what, when I went and I told the girl, I said, I want to chop my hair off. And she said, well, are you sure? Like, because you often wear it up. And I said, yeah, that's what I'm trying to avoid. I had noticed that from me wearing it up so much, it was causing me to have headaches. Mm-hmm. And I felt like my hair was like breaking off because it was always in some kind of ponytail holder.
Yes.
And she said, yes, that does damage your hair over time. And so I said, yeah, I feel like if I cut it off, then I will do more with it.
Sure.
And she said, well, you probably still won't do more with it, but at least you can just, brush it out, and then, it's straight. So it'll lay flat and it won't be as much work for you.
Well, you see, that's the great option when you have curly hair that, I can make it straight, but it is time consuming and I
Oh, I
get
can imagine.
right. And because it takes so long, my scalp gets really hot. And so I start sweating and then I start getting pissed off, but I think, I just,
It sounds
yeah,
like
I
me when
don't
I'm
know.
curling my hair, because my hair is straight and it's fine, but there's a
Right.
lot of it. Like, and every time I go to a hair person, they look at it and they're like, "Oh, your hair is so misleading because it's so fine and straight." They think it's not going to be super thick, but I have a lot of
Mm.
hairs on my head. And when they get in there, they're like, "This is a lot of hair." I'm like,
Right? They just
"Sorry."
keep digging and digging. Well,
Yes.
that's how it was when I got my hair. I remember years ago when my son was very, very young, he was pulling at my hair and damaging it. So I would go to the hairdresser and I would go shorter and shorter and shorter. And I remember he would say, it doesn't end because it just is so
It's
thick. He's
just
like,
so
it just doesn't
much.
until I actually cut it really, really short like a man. And I couldn't stay like that. And so ever since then I grew it out and it's never been short. But I think that the shorter I would go with my hair, the easier it would be to straighten it and might look really good. But I'm curious how that might look if I actually were to cut my hair short and just maybe keep it straight. Oh, then I'll just get, heat damage. But that's what kind of is leading me into our topic of discussion today, everybody. Rhonda and I were discussing things that we're curious about and thought that would make a really great topic. So, what are you guys curious about? Everyone has curiosities, I think.
I
And I
guess
think
so.
I think that we're all curious, but sometimes when like you and I have to do these topics, I get stumped. All of a sudden, when like I'm being asked a particular question, I'm like, I don't know the answer. When yet
Yes.
you right
And I
and you
have
don't
no ideas about it either.
and
Yes.
and you don't realize that like these are things that you actually do think about
Yes.
randomly that I guess but it's like, yes, I'm going to say it. There's this guy on TikTok. Here I go.
Here we
And,
go.
and we should just start our own TikTok channel about loving TikTok. No, but is that what it's called? A channel? Yeah, I think it's called a channel. But anyway, this guy goes up to random people and asks them a question, a normal, everyday question that we would all know. But because he goes right up to them and asks them, all of a sudden they're like, and I'm like, I
That
know,
that would
like,
be me.
what's the color of the sky? And you're like,
I don't know.
right.
I've never seen the sky. That's
I'll send you a link. He's kind of like a celebrity, but I forget his name, and he's very, very funny. And like he sometimes brings celebrities with him on the street and asks people like, certain questions. And I think it's hysterical. And so I had to really think about some of these things. And I of course use the help of the internet to help kind of get my brain going. So
yes.
this is in everybody. This is in no order. So my number one does not mean that's my number one curiosity, but I'm going to start with what's on my list. Number one, I am curious what it's like to be a genius because I'm
Oh,
not. I'm far from it. But to
that's a good
have
one.
thanks. I mean, to have a brain that is overly functional to the point where you don't even have to think. Because I think that when you're a genius and you don't really need to think about things, it's just right there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and that would be interesting. Like really, really geniuses, like a
Mm.
beautiful mind kind of genius. Like,
Yes.
to where you can, because I cannot do math at all.
Me
Like,
either.
I mean, and so for me, that's very, when I can see someone and they just look at it and it just makes sense to them and they can do physics and all this stuff. That's intriguing to me.
My sister is extremely smart, especially, with math. And there have been times where I just would call her up and say, listen, this was like when my son was in school, and I would say to her, I can spend 20 hours on this and still come out with the same answer. And I would ask her, can you please help, my son with this? And she goes, oh yeah. And in like 5 seconds he got it. And I'm like, what? Like I had no idea. Like another thing on TikTok, they would do They were doing square roots. Do you know that, like, if they want to know the square root of a 3-digit number, you just add the 3 numbers and that gives you the
Oh
square
no,
root?
I did not know that.
Do you freaking believe this? All these
That would have
years.
that would have been so helpful when I
I
was
mean,
in school.
I know. Why didn't the teachers know about this, or did they know and they didn't tell us? I mean, and there are other math tricks on TikTok also. Like, I think it's either addition or subtraction, but you wind up just starting at the number 0 and then go. It's like, hypothetically speaking, um, 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times, I'm sorry, 1 times 1, and then 2 times 3 or whatever, but you go down in like, in a particular order, and all you do is add the numbers, or you just start in a sequence and it winds up being 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. I know I'm not explaining myself well, but there are so many tips and tricks on TikTok that I'm like, God damn it. I would have liked this when my son was younger to help him with things.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, that would have been uh, really, really helpful. I was a teacher when my son was in school, so I would have one of the math teachers help him because I couldn't.
Right. Oh, that's
There's
good.
just no way. Yeah. So at least, I had some people to ask for him, but no,
But you
I
know what I
can't.
wonder, Rhonda? I wonder if you're a genius, if life is not very challenging. Because if you already are born with this innate, way to comprehend things so easy, where's the challenge in your life when everything comes so easy?
Maybe the challenge is the less smart people.
Like me.
Like maybe that's challenging for them because if there's like, I mean, I think I'm pretty smart. Like I have a couple degrees. I've done well in school. Like I can figure most things out. So I think I'm pretty smart, but I know I'm not a genius. Like I'm not a beautiful mind or, a super genius like Steve Jobs or any people like that. But maybe the challenge is like, who do they talk to about their ideas?
Well, that's just it. No one can really, be equal to that person,
Right.
you
So
know?
So that for them, their challenge would be like they have these brilliant ideas that they can come up with. And then when they're trying to explain it to like their friends, even if they're pretty smart people, are looking at them like, I have no clue what you're saying.
Well, you know what? Wouldn't it be nice if there were people in this world that were so incredibly brilliant and could apply that in some form of teaching and help people, like, okay, Stephen Hawking, right? He
Right.
passed away recently, but the things that he had discovered and the things that he knew about, the way that he used his intelligence was, I think, very well done. And I
Right.
don't, and I just, but I think that when there are people like that can actually teach things, even if it's not being a teacher, but just being able to teach people things that we wouldn't ordinarily know. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
did you ever watch TED Talks before, the
I
videos?
do.
Right? I mean, you've got a lot of people on there that are extremely bright, have really great ideas. There's so many different topics that they talk about. I thought, maybe it would be nice if there was a very intelligent person, or perhaps a genius, that could do these types of discussions to help the human race for the better good. You know what I
Right.
mean? In one way or another, instead of, just doing like what they would normally do, like work for NASA
Right.
or whatever it is. How about, the people like me that don't know how to add 2 and 2.
Right. Like I use a calculator for everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, but guess what? When I use a calculator, I might not be adding the things in correctly. Like, does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like,
Yeah, no,
I
that's
don't
me
know how
too.
to actually do the equation. And so it might come out wrong. I need to know
Right.
how to
So
do.
yeah, even when I enter it into the calculator, it still could be incorrect because I'm not setting it up correctly.
Well, let me tell you, there is this website that's called Wolfram. It's Wolf, WOLF, RAM, alpha.com. It helps with every mathematical equation there is. And actually, if you want to help your daughter, your stepdaughter, I'm telling you, yes, it's something I also heard on TikTok. But I think that, I tried it out. It's amazing how you could just put in certain questions and it gives you all the right answers, and it teaches you how to do it too, which is kind of cool. But anyway, moving on, what is something you're curious about, Rhonda?
So I'm curious about people. It's again, it's how brains work. Like, the people who you can show them like this is the evidence of the argument that you're arguing, and this is why your argument is incorrect, and they will still believe it. I'm just curious. I'm curious as to how that happens, because if I have a belief about something, but then someone shows me this is why you're wrong, and here is these experts or the proof, I say, oh man, I didn't know that, and then I just
Yeah.
accept that I was wrong. But there seems to be many people who are like, nope, I'm right, and I don't care how much proof you show me, I am correct.
Hmm. It kind of reminds me a lot of, people who, believe everything that President Trump is saying, or the
Yes.
things that he was saying about COVID, when there were scientists that were proving
Yes.
that, he was wrong, and people, no matter what, would still believe what he was saying. He's not a scientist, but he felt that, what I say is right and the scientists are wrong. I think that there are certain people that are just kind of built that way, that they might look up to some people, and no matter
And whatever they say is gospel. It's
that's exactly it.
it's and it's so weird because I keep seeing like people, and again, I saw it on TikTok, and I've never I don't report or block anyone on there, because I'm just like, that's their page. If they want to say whatever they want, like, I just
Right.
scroll past. That's not like, I don't comment and try to argue with them. But I saw this woman, and she was throwing chairs and flipping a table and saying that she and her kids were going on a hunger strike because of the stolen election.
Oh God.
And so then
Hey.
I was curious, because I was like, that is obviously staged. Like, she just wants attention. And so she only had 3 videos on her page, but she really was like telling her family to stop calling CPS on her. And I was like, I don't know if this is real or not, but I feel a need to report it, because I could hear her kids crying in the background. And I was like, I don't know this woman, but if she's really not feeding her kids because
Oh
she
my
feels
God.
that strongly that this election was stolen, and people were like, they were commenting, and they were like genuinely concerned and saying, hey, this is not healthy. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
I wonder if people like that are just in desperate need of attention.
that's what I
Um,
wonder.
I would I would really pray that she's, full of it and is
Right.
not
That it
starving
was
her.
for attention.
Hmm.
I hope so. But
But you
that
know
was the
what?
first time I've ever reported anyone. And then, it asked you those questions like, why are you reporting them? And I was like, I don't even know what to say here.
Well,
Like,
but that's
just,
just it, right?
just go look at the videos, and I think that will answer your question.
Isn't that funny that you actually had to think about that? Like, what would I even say?
Yeah. What do I even say? Like, I mean, something she either needs help or attention or something. Can somebody
Mm.
check on this woman?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you something. When you go onto social media and you put out a video where you're saying that you're going to basically starve your children, um, I could care less if they're kidding or not. That's really messed up.
Right.
To even think, what kind of mindset does someone have where they actually would say something like that? They can actually have their children taken away from them
Right,
from
because
child services.
now you just put this out there, and there's incontrovertible proof that you're acting this
Absolutely.
way, even if it was staged. But I saw that video, and then and I don't know how the algorithm works, but it just kept showing me people that were like saying how the election was stolen and that they weren't going to accept it. And the poor people in the comments, they were trying so hard, just to say, like, hey, the electoral college already voted, and like,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. It
never in
doesn't
the
matter.
right. And they were like, well, we have until Congress decides. And they said, well, never in the history of the country has Congress gone against.
Never.
Right. So they're trying to give them like all these examples and proof, and they just do not believe it.
Do
And
you
so I wonder, like, how is denial that strong in some people?
I also think that it's the denial is also because it's a certain subset of people that are believing it. And it's like a herd of sheep. When one person believes it, then another, then a group, and then everybody, because everybody's
Yes.
believing it, they all believe in. I don't really know if they truly believe this 100%, or if they're just following the crowd. I don't really know, but I did read that Trump, uh I think this was, God, I don't know, maybe a week ago, he was, basically telling, quote, his supporters, to show up on January 6th in DC to protest Congress counting all the votes. And I'm like, okay, what? I'm speechless again.
Yeah, so
I
what is the point, because we're in this pandemic where we have this virus going around that's killing people, and everyone is saying, stay home if you can, don't gather in crowds, wear a mask. And then you
yeah.
have President Trump saying, come and gather.
Well,
The
you know
masks
what?
don't work.
When you ask people who really like him that question, their answer is it doesn't exist, or but
Yes.
he's fine. Here's the deal. There was a woman, I think she's a nurse, and I don't know where it was. TikTok. We should actually get paid for endorsing so
For
many videos
endorsing
on
so many
TikTok because we're
TikToks.
both addicted to it. And I think it might have been a pharmacy, but excuse me, I'm not entirely sure. But she was wearing scrubs, and it said she's a nurse. She was wearing a mask, and there was a woman who sounded very sane, very normal, but was not wearing a mask. And she was saying, I'm not crazy. I'm just so sick of this. I'm so sick of this. It's like I want things to be normal, and I'm not sick. And I'm listening to this. And the beginning part, she sounded pretty okay. But when she started saying, I'm not sick, and then it's all fake. Now, she was
Oh
saying
gosh.
this to a woman who is a nurse in the ER, putting sheets over the faces of dead people from COVID. And this woman who lives in her own bubble is saying it's fake. This is not true. So, getting back to what we were talking about regarding Trump, these are the people that are believing that most of this is not true, and it's not until something really happens to these people that they get it and they realize it. But I don't even want to go there anymore. Let's keep talking, because it's almost over, and soon enough we'll have a new president. And regardless of how you and I feel about Trump or Biden, this has nothing to do with politics or whether we're Republican or Democrat. It's just about the well-being of people. I
Right.
could love Trump but still disagree with some of the ways that he's behaving. You know,
Right.
and
Right.
I don't agree with how he's been handling things, and that he's a baby and a sore loser and not just accepting it. All he wants to do is keep saying that this is, the Democrats, we're pulling things out, and just the whole thing is rigged, and he lost.
Right.
He
And
can't
it's
accept it.
done. Let's just
Right, but he
just
can't. He
right.
can't accept it, no
Do
matter
you
what anyone says.
do you think that that's like um a narcissistic personality trait that he really can't, like it's a mental disorder that he can't do it?
I've been trying to figure that out, Rhonda. Like, is there really something mentally wrong with him? Or is he just an egotistical prick
Right.
that
Like
does not like to lose and never loses? And this is the first time in his life that he's really maybe lost. He's in his 70s. He doesn't
right.
know how to act or react. So maybe it's a combination. But how do you not know as a man that you are the president of the United States, and looking at his behavior, it's like he doesn't care, because as long as he has supporters that agree with him, that just fuels his fire. So I think, in answer to your question, it might be both. I definitely think he's got some mental issues going on. I mean, how
I think
can't
so
you?
as well.
I mean, like,
That's the only explanation for it.
right? I mean, do normal people behave this way?
You
I
know,
mean,
it seems like more and more are coming out of the woodwork. You
Oh,
know,
yeah. They're out. They've been out.
right? Like, does that feel like to you, like when the leaders of our country, and so this is something that I've also been curious about, like the leaders of our country, they're doing things like calling other, like when that one guy called AOC a bitch,
Uh-huh. Yep, yep.
and I mean, no matter how you feel about him or her, that is not, you can't, like you or I cannot go into a workplace and call our coworker
No.
a bitch without repercussions. And yet our Congress people are talking to one another like this. So I feel like when our leaders of our country make it acceptable to act like that,
Mm-hmm.
people just are like, well, they do it, so why not me?
Yeah, I have to tell you that there have been times where I have kind of looked at these well, I hate to say CNN, but Cuomo says we Trumplicans, but whatever you want to call them, his supporters, I just look at them like, what's wrong with you? Just
Yes, like who
I want to
raised you?
shake, right, right. I want to shake them up. And I think that when you have a president who behaves the way he behaves, all of the other followers who were, in their basements, sneaking onto their computers and
Right,
not coming out of the woodwork are now coming out of the woodwork and are without masks. I'm talking Proud Boys, KKK, all of
right.
these people all of a sudden are, well, Proud Boys, but they're proud of being how they are, and they walk around with shirts basically stating that 3 million Jews wasn't enough.
Yes,
They're a despicable, disgusting, human race who are stuck in a time long gone. And
yes,
and everyone is entitled to their opinion, but when when you have an irrational an opinion, and it's really not an opinion, it's more hate.
yes,
That to me is very concerning, that there's so many organizations and people that we know of now, ever since Trump, making it okay excuse me, to
yes.
come out and be this way. I just don't get it. Okay, so anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
So I am curious what it's like to be a prodigy.
Oh, like a piano prodigy or
Yeah, I mean,
violin
like,
or
what was it like to be Bobby Fischer or Mozart or even
yes.
Picasso, or even child prodigies? I wonder what it's like. I mean, I've always been very musical, and I remember listening. Well, I mean, Beethoven and Mozart were children, but I remember when I was younger and I was learning about music and listening to child prodigies excuse me, or men that were considered child prodigies. I was so intrigued, mostly with like classical music prodigies, so I always wonder what it's like. And it kind of, I guess, is more like being a genius too, like having they're a little bit similar, I think, when you're extremely bright and you're also, or you're also a prodigy. It's two things that you excel greatly in versus just being normal average person, which is basically what I am. So I am, right, I'm just curious, what would it be like to be able to play a piano just from hearing music, or feeling the vibration like Beethoven did on the floor. Like, what do you think it would be like to just be a prodigy? Like, what do you
Oh,
think is like a modern day? I'm trying to think of a modern day example of a prodigy. Probably math prodigies, or
yeah.
but
Maybe Steve Jobs with his like technology,
sure,
like just being like just under, because I do not understand technology, but then there are people who can sit down at a computer and
right?
do some amazing things, or they can build these amazing machines that do incredible stuff. And for me, I have trouble updating my phone.
Do you think that prodigies are born or are made? Like, maybe, I'll be
I
honest with
don't
you.
know.
I think, again, I think it's a combination. I think it's a result of, genetics, but also I don't think anyone is born a prodigy, but I still think that
They're
there's certain genetic tendencies that they
okay.
have when they're born. But I think that they're made. I think that there are 4-year-old kids that are math geniuses. How the hell do they even know what it means? How do they even know? They
I
just
mean,
know their brain.
right, but they have to be exposed to it as well
Mm,
and like encouraged to do it, because like okay, like there's that theory of multiple intelligences where
mm,
where certain people are more musically kind or
right.
like kinesiology wise, like they can move their bodies so they can dance really well or play sports or
Sure.
emotional intelligence. So I think that you're born with like a certain predisposition, I guess,
Yeah.
to certain aspects or different areas. But I also think if you don't work at them, they will not, you know, I think that if you don't start working on them, you'll just never know.
Mm. I.
So like if your parents don't expose you or give you the opportunity,
Mhm.
who's to say like you may just, I guess if you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing.
You know what this reminds me of? Did you see Hidden Figures?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Katherine Johnson, I think was her
Yes.
name. And Taraji P. Henson is the one who was the actress. Do you remember that she was so exceptional in math and her parents sent her to an exceptional school for exceptional children? So
Right.
that's kind of like what you were saying, that if you don't work on it or if you don't go to certain schools or get educated to kind of empower more of what you have, it could slowly die. And, then I thought of Hidden Figures, like, remember that she was sent to a school and I mean, she wound up working,
For
for
NASA.
NASA,
Yeah.
right? Like what, almost 30, 35 years or something like
Yes.
that.
I
I
mean,
mean, and the calculations that she was able
by
to,
hand
oh, for goodness
too.
sake.
Yeah. I mean, and so I wonder about that, like
You're
sometimes
curious.
like yeah, I'm curious about like in the past, like were there when women or black people or Hispanics or people of different like minority classes, when they weren't given the opportunities,
Right.
how many people did we miss out on?
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I'm sure quite a lot.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I think about that a lot. That
but maybe the lineage, like let's say we missed out on someone 100 years ago. Well, it's a little extreme, but let's say we did, but they then had children that were maybe able to get educated, and then
right.
maybe they helped society, or maybe they were able to pass on their intelligence to their children or grandchildren who were able to get educated. You never know. I mean, there might have been someone who couldn't do it or afford to continue, but maybe somewhere down in their family tree they were able to. All
Oh, I hope so.
right, you're up.
Okay. So we can do all this amazing stuff, right? I mean, we have like satellites and our phones have these GPS and just know all this stuff. But
Hmm.
yet, like today, my power is out because it's windy. So how, like, I'm curious about how we can do that. Like we have these satellites in the sky, we can send a man
Hmm.
to the moon, we can create all of this technology. And it seems like sometimes like the base stuff that would make life easier for people is not done. So I wonder like about the focus of
Hmm.
that, I guess.
Oh, I like that one a lot. It's almost like they skipped the simple steps and went to like the harder parts. And when there's simple things that need help with, they can't come up with
Right.
an answer.
Right. We can't tell you.
We can only help with complex
Right. We
situations.
cannot help you with this simple
We need
thing.
the average normal people to help us with the baseline.
Right.
Like me, I can help. I'm your average Joe. Oh my God, it's very true though. And like what you were saying, I mean, there are such simple things that happen, like when your cable goes out
Right.
and you're in the middle of watching, like, I don't know, the Super Bowl.
Yes. And
It's
then
like,
so
wait,
you're like, okay, you guys can put a man on the moon, but
right.
you can't but my power goes out when it's too
I'm
windy.
during the Super Bowl. God damn you. How do you not? Oh my God. Has that ever happened to you when like things like maybe you're looking forward to watching an awards show or something and then gone.
Yeah, and it's
It's out.
always something that is live.
Yes.
And you didn't record it, and people are going to talk about the results. So even if you watch it later, you're already
Oh,
going to know what happened.
that's so true. Oh, I like that one. I don't have an answer for that.
It's
Maybe we should ask some
some
prodigies or
one of
geniuses.
those genius prodigies.
Oh my God. All right. Well, I'm glad that we're able to at least speak to each other and do the podcast through the data usage, which
Yes.
is, oh
Yeah,
gosh. Okay.
and I like I told you I'd never done it before. I always just, it's always just connected
Yeah.
to the Wi-Fi because I'm at home. So I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if it relied on the Wi-Fi too much, but it's doing fine. So
You know that if you have your iPhone, set for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and you don't have Wi-Fi, there's a setting where it automatically uses Bluetooth.
okay.
I'm sorry, not Bluetooth. Yeah, Bluetooth. I mean, or data.
Yeah.
All right. I am curious, not to get morbid, but this was actually in my blog the other day, and my last podcast. So I guess I just was thinking about it. I am curious how I'm going to die, or what I might die of. I'm
You
curious,
know,
not crazy curious. Like I don't
right,
think
like
about it all the time.
so Mark and I had this conversation the other day. We were watching something, and the person on it was told the exact day they were going to die. And
No.
he was like, so we had this discussion about if we think that would be good or bad to know the date.
Mm,
And I was like, I think it could be good in a way because then I would know that no matter what I did, skydiving, climbing a mountain, whatever, that I'd be fine as long as it wasn't on that date.
right.
So it would take away maybe a lot of those fears that we talked about in a previous podcast. But
Mm,
then I feel like you'd also just have a sense of dread as you got closer and closer to that date.
yes.
It would just be hanging over your head like, what do I need to do that I haven't done?
Oh God. You know what? I don't. I don't think. I I was watching a movie. I don't know if this is the same one. It was with Justin Timberlake,
I don't,
and
I was half
but
watching this one. So,
yeah, I don't entirely remember this. I just remember that they had like almost like a counter, a stamped counter,
oh,
on
yes,
their
where
arm.
they where they can, time is like the currency.
Yes,
Yes.
and so it was like a countdown, and they had like they had certain. Like they had a certain amount of like something on this card, and they can refuel their time by doing something. I don't remember, but I remember thinking I could never live like this, knowing that my time is up on a certain day. I couldn't.
And could you
I
imagine, like,
couldn't.
they have those counters where they can just look down at their arm and just
No,
be reminded that, see, I think that would be terrible.
it would be the only thing on your mind.
Yeah, that would be the only thing
I
I
mean,
could
I'm
think
not
of.
saying, yeah, I'm not saying you wouldn't live your life. I'm not saying you wouldn't continue, but it would always be ticking in your brain, right?
Yes.
It would always be there, and it would be like a thorn, and you could never get rid of it.
No, you couldn't.
Yeah, I don't want to know when. I'm just curious, like
How it's going to
what's
happen.
gonna happen. Yeah, and like, will I be comfortable? Will I just go in my sleep? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think about that sometimes, like, and I think about it always like in terms of other people I've known who have died. And then I
Mm.
think like how they died and if that would be like a good way to go. And maybe that's kind of morbid, but so I always think about that.
No,
Like,
I don't think that. I don't. Maybe a little morbid, but I also think that there's nothing wrong with being curious about that and thinking about these things. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, no,
No, I think actually it's healthy, to think about things like that every now and then. I think that it just means that, to me, it means that I still have more of a life to live, and I want to make sure I live it to the fullest and do as much of my bucket list as I can,
yes.
before like my time comes.
So
So
I had this conversation with my stepdaughter one day. We were driving home from picking her up at school, and her grandfather on her mom's side died within the past
hmm.
year. And then, she had her horse die, and then they had to have a dog put to sleep. So, yeah, it was just, so she had, in a relatively short time for being 8, 9 years old, she had a lot of death, in her
Mm,
life. And so she was talking
yeah.
about it and talking about, what happens after you die and where you go. And so we just kind of talked about it, and I talked about how different people believe different things. And, she just was really open, like, about what she'd heard, and she was confused about some things. And so, and she was just very much like, nobody can know, right? She's like, that's just something that nobody can know, is what happens after you die. And I said, not until you die. And then you can't tell
Well,
anyone
yeah.
else, and it's kind of a weird concept for a kid, I think, to, have an adult just tell them there's just some things that don't have an answer.
Absolutely. There's, I think, more than we realize.
Definitely.
There's just not an answer to everything. Although I am an answer person.
Me
like
too.
I need answers, right? I'm a what if.
Yes.
And I need answers yesterday. And like, so I'm waiting for these test results for my hip, and, just to see like if it's sciatica or whatever. And when they took the x-rays, the doctor noticed these like marks, and he said the doctor's assistant comes in and sits down with me, and he goes, so you have a few lesions, like one on your pelvis and one on your femur. Nothing to worry about. Probably had it since you were a kid, but we took x-rays, and I just wanted to let you know what we saw. Then he just wiped that off the slate and continued talking about the pain that I've been having, so on and so forth. He leaves. Well, he says that he's going to get the doctor, and I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. Like, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? He's not here. So of course I'm like, lesions. What the frig is a lesion?
What can this lesion be? I need all of the answers right now.
But here's the thing. Had the doctor come in prior to 15 minutes, I probably wouldn't have even questioned it or thought about it. So I go on and I type in bone lesions. First thing I see, cancer.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm like, what the So doctor comes in. I said, I came in for one thing. I feel like I'm leaving with something else. And I got upset and concerned. And he's like, look, it's probably nothing, but since you're going, he was ordering an MRI for me to take for my sciatica. And he said, well, I'll just add in, this to see if it really is anything. So I flipped. I got in my car. I was crying. I was freaking out. I'm like, this is it. 51. It's all over. I'm done.
You see?
And so and it messed me up for days. I was so down and so sad and so not able to get a grip. And now I'm in that acceptance stage where, I even called him and said, can you make me feel better? I did. I was like, I'm so scared. But he did say to me before I left, look, I didn't mean to scare you. He said, I've seen a lot of these before, and what I see does not look bad. But I needed to hear it again. And so he's like, yeah, And then that was the end of that. Had I never gone to the doctor for the pain that I have, I never would have known about this. Crazy.
It is. I'm really bad with medical things. And of course, like with my autoimmune disorder, I was going to a lot of doctors for a long time, and they would run all these tests, and I was just Googling symptoms all the time. And at one point, my rheumatologist told me to stay off the internet. She said, you have to stop Googling these symptoms. She said, because WebMD is going to tell you the worst. Like, she's like, it's always going to be the worst. She's like, it's so really true. Not helpful for you. You're just having a lot of anxiety. But it's really hard to wait for a test result. Especially after you've Googled and you're like, I am clearly dying.
That's just it. He said the same thing. He said, get off the internet. I said, look, I swear I only went to 2 sites. I said, and they were reputable websites and they had studies. I said, and I did that so I wouldn't. And I said, it basically was, saying what it could be, how bad it could be, how not bad it could be. He said, I don't care. Get off, because it might not pertain to you. I said, well, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to be a little prepared, but I, of course, went overboard and was like flipping out.
Which is what I do.
It's really bad.
I do it under the guise of, I just want to be prepared, because I like to know what's going to happen. Like, I like to know what's going to happen with things, and I don't like to leave things like up. So, and I would do the same thing. I'm like, well, I'm reading sites and they're reputable and they're scientific, and And she's like, it doesn't matter. She's like,
It's true.
you,
It does not matter.
she's like, you don't know, you're not a doctor, so you don't know how to look at this whole thing and figure it out.
Exactly.
She said, you're just reading these little snippets and you don't really understand. And I was like, okay.
And you want to know what? Even if you do get diagnosed with a certain something, it doesn't mean that your body's going to react the same way that the internet is saying it might.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
but we're guilty of it. Everyone, I don't care who's listening, you are guilty
Oh,
of
yes.
it too. It's not just Rhonda and me.
Oh.
It's no.
Yeah, and you're guilty of it. I'm really bad about the animals. If the animals seem like they're hurt or sick, my immediate thought is like the worst case scenario.
Of course, I do the same thing. I don't know. Is this a woman thing or is it a personality thing? Are we trying to just prepare? I think I have to be honest. And as much as I would love to agree with my mother and my sister telling me, hey, you know, you always do this. And I wonder if it's not that I'm doing this because I'm doing this, just because it's like a flaw, or if I'm doing it because I'm always preparing myself for the worst so I can move on from it.
Right. Because if you
and deal with it the rest of the week.
Right. Because if you expect it, you get the bad news and then you're like, okay, what do we do next? And then you just kind of
and I sometimes feel like I'm cursing myself. Like if I don't think about it, that the gods are going to be like, oh, well, you don't seem to give a shit about this. That's it. Now you're going to get cancer. Like, okay, I just have
Here
to
you
make
go with your laissez-faire
worse.
attitude. Now we're going to punish
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Okay, you're up.
Oh, okay. So I actually found this when I was looking up, like, you know, because of course, like you, I couldn't think of a single thing that I was curious about. And I found this article about things that curious people are guilty of. Because normally, like if I'm curious about something, I look it up, you know, and then it says that people who do that find themselves like looking up one video and then they just kind of spiral into it. So then I started thinking about like how I get stuck on weird YouTube things, you know, and it just keeps, and and then I learn all these weird things about, you know, I do the same thing on TikTok too. You know, I go into like where I just go to the next video and then, you know, I'm going to the next video and then the next thing I know, I'm like, I've been doing this for way too long.
That's everyone though, Rhonda. I do that. Everyone on TikTok does it and they even comment about it.
So do you think that there are certain things, so this is what I was curious about, like I can log on Facebook for, you know, 2 minutes, post my shirt of the day, post, you know, share the one thing I wanted to share, and then I'm done. And then I log off and I don't think about it again. Same thing with like, you know, on Instagram, I have like, you know, I post certain things for the business at certain times of day and I have it planned out in advance. So I know what's going to be posted. So I don't even have to think about it. And I might scroll and like some people's pictures. And, you know, there's a strategy that you use for business to promote on Instagram. And so I do that. And then I log off and don't look at it again, you know, till later. But TikTok
and YouTube,
I will get on there and then I'm like, I've been doing this for 2 hours. What?
Yes. Yes. And I am guilty that the other day I was on it. It must have been a good hour and my husband was out and he came home and I shut it down and pretended that I was like cleaning the house or doing things.
Because you're like, I don't want to tell you that I have sat here for the entire hour you were gone and done nothing.
You know, I think that TikTok and YouTube, because they're videos, they pique our interest. You can actually see it.
I think so.
You can feel things. And it definitely piques our curiosity because there are some that really make you feel good. There are some that make you feel bad. There are things you didn't know about that make you, aware of things. And I will not go on to TikTok during the day. Yes, I did yesterday. Because I said, I am not sitting here watching TV. What did I freaking do? I sat there watching TikTok.
Right.
But I very rarely go on during the day, but I go on at night. And it's really bad because I have dogs that I'm watching. I have to be up at 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. I sometimes don't get to bed till 1, 2 o'clock. I'm exhausted the whole day.
You know?
Because of TikTok.
And it's like, you know that you're doing this, but you know, you're like powerless to stop. Like last night I was like, okay, I'm putting my phone down. And I put it down. And then I was like,
no.
Like 10 minutes later, I was like, well, I can't sleep. So I might as well.
What about, and I know then you had to have done this. All right, one more minute and I'm done. And you can clearly see the
Yes.
time on your
Hmm.
clock, on your phone. And meanwhile, another 10 minutes go by and you're like, oh shit, all right, that's
That's
it.
it. Yeah.
One more and I'm
Yep.
done. An hour later,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah. You're like you look at the time and like it's 12:23 right here right now. So I'd be like, okay, at 12:30, I'm getting off. That way it's a nice
right.
even time. But then 12:30 goes by and I'm like, okay,
Yep.
well, 1 o'clock.
I know it's really, I think that, for people, well, everyone has like an addictive part of their personality. It's not a bad thing. I just think that, with certain personalities like ours, I don't know if it's such a bad thing because I actually use a lot of the things that I'm watching on TikTok. I watch a lot of news people, like where they used to work in the news, and because of the pandemic now they work from
Uh-huh.
home, and they started their own TikTok channel, and so it keeps me abreast of the things that are kind of going on. But I look forward to those things. I also look forward, to like the Amazon finds that you didn't know about, because
Yes.
my husband just loves seeing the packages pile up at the door. Oh
So I
my
have
God.
one that I just use for personal, and I follow friends and family and stuff on there, and I really like to see their stuff, and I like to see how creative people are. But then I have one for my
Yes.
business, and I follow a lot of people that are like advertising gurus, or they're social media marketing managers, and they give you all these really good tips that you can use. So I feel like it's educational, and that's how I think I justify it.
Look, whatever floats your boat, you got to justify it in some way, just to keep going and not thinking that you're crazy. I hate to tell you, but I think anybody that has started watching TikTok and has gotten into it just can't
I
stop.
think so too. My mom loves it as well. And she
Mm.
has met like this group of ladies that they have group chats now, and they are friends,
Aw.
and it's been really good. Um,
I don't do anything. I have like, my name, my profile, but that's it. I just follow people. I don't comment, like you said before. I don't comment. I don't do anything. I just look at it and I keep going. But I do like it. And if I want to use the word addicting, I don't think that we're addicted, because if we were addicted, we'd be watching it more often,
yeah,
you
yeah, and
know?
I think, and it would be like to the point it's interfering in your life. Like I mean,
Yeah, that's
I
not
don't,
happening yet.
I'm
Yet.
still doing everything I need to do. Am I wasting my free time on there? Absolutely.
Eh, you know what? Who cares? It's your free time.
Exactly. So, I mean, whether I'm using that free time to, watch a movie or whatever I'm
Where
doing.
are you going? I hear doors
Oh,
opening.
I just had to close my door because the wind is pushing it open.
Oh, that's what I heard. I heard wind.
Oh, yeah.
And then I heard that. All right. I'm just going to say a few other things that I'm curious about so we don't have to talk about it. And then you can tell me what yours are so we don't have to do this too much longer. But I have things, I'm curious about things that were cool that are no longer cool. Like how I used to wear my hair in the 80s, and the clothes I used to wear and the music I used to listen to, and how now, like if I hear a certain song, I can imagine what I was wearing during that
Oh,
time.
yeah.
I'm just curious about that. I'm curious if there really is an Area 51. I'm very, very curious about that. I've always wanted to know, and I think there is, but you never know. You never. And if there is an Area 51, are there really
Well,
aliens?
so
Ha ha ha.
there is an Area 51. Um, there
What?
is. It's in New Mexico. Um, Mark lived in New Mexico during high school, but it's like a military base and nobody knows what's on it.
Is that the one that goes all the way down into the ground?
Yes,
Okay, it's called Area 51.
it is. It's like I mean, I don't think the actual title of it is Area 51, but it's like
Uh huh.
that's the number of the military base.
My
Yes, and
God.
so it exists, but it's kind of like they test like new airplanes and stuff out of it, is what
Hmm.
the story is. But
That's the
that's the
story. You're
story.
right. And this is actually, I know, a silly one, but I am curious how to make pottery. I've always wanted to take a class and maybe start doing something like that. But I'm just so curious about the very beginning and if I would totally mess it up or if I would be good at it.
Maybe
You
be a
know,
prodigy.
I'm a
A
pottery
prodigy.
prodigy. And then my final curious question is for you. I'm curious what's on your playlist, like Spotify playlist or what music you would listen to. And do you listen to the same music or is it depending on your
It is
mood?
depending on my mood. I actually did the Spotify year in review thing yesterday, and they said I listened to like 100 and something, like 185 or some crazy number like that, different genres. So
Ah,
I felt like it was all over the place. Yes,
hmm. That would be like me too. We have a lot in common. I have very eclectic taste, and obviously you
me
do too.
too.
I don't like any one
It's
genre. I can like I said earlier, I can like
hmm
classical, and then I can like rock. I can like Broadway. I was brought up on Broadway. You know, so there's so many different things and jazz, and I think it really just depends on how it touches you.
same thing. I like pretty much everything. So this is something I'm curious about, and it's because I recently saw this family who's doing it on Instagram. They
Okay,
sold everything and they just travel around doing odd jobs and selling stuff that they make, and they're traveling the world with their kids. And
I
they have
love it.
no home, but they're just doing all of these amazing experiences all over the world. So I'm curious about like that leap of faith that people can just sell all their
Hmm.
stuff and just go with just the stuff on their back. I think that's
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I know certain people in my life that would probably do something like that. I don't know if I would want to give up on certain quote luxuries.
see that's how I am. Like my thing is like my pets. You know, like
Yeah,
um
that's a
it's a
tough
tough
one.
one. Like I have a friend that moved to Thailand and she moved there to teach for 2 years and she's now been there for 7. So
Yeah,
she left there with just, 2 suitcases. She left Oklahoma and now she just stays there. But she travels all over because it's so cheap to travel in that part of.
yeah it is.
And
Yeah.
so I just wonder, but like I'd have to get rid of my horses, my dogs, and I don't know that I could.
Oh, it's tough. You know, like I know my sister is more of a candidate to do that than me. Um, I have spoken with my husband about um wanting to get an
Oh
RV
yeah, we've talked about that as well.
and travel the world doing that. And if I could afford it, getting a boat too, so I can do like land and sea. But I think that's the most I do.
I, that's what I was thinking too. I mean, I'd love to travel to other countries more, but I honestly I don't think I could get rid of my dog.
Oh, I know. I mean, the good thing about dogs is that if you get a big enough RV, you could
He,
bring them
he
with
could
you,
go with me on the.
but not horses and
Uh,
chickens. And, that would be hard for
yeah,
you, I
that would be
think.
hard for me. But the dog could go with me
Well, yeah.
because I don't,
I mean, duh.
honestly I don't think I could get rid of him. Like this, it's not a um,
I don't know. It's one of that is on my bucket list, like seeing the world via RV, or at least, the contiguous 50 states. Because
right.
I haven't seen all the states, and I have mentioned to my husband maybe we could get a big map and decide on all of the different national parks. Like we could go through these different states and go through all of the national parks or just parks or the most, reputable parks. And then, maybe go to the most reputable places there. Like if we go somewhere with his mountains, I want to climb a mountain, things like that.
Right.
But we're getting older. So like, let's go already. Get me the friggin' RV,
Right. Right. It's not.
Oh no, well, we've got a mortgage and then we want a house in North Carolina. I'm like, so RV, boat, North Carolina home, Florida home.
Let's
God damn
go.
it. Where's my sugar daddy? God, no, 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 no. But I definitely think probably in the next few years, we might be able to get the RV or a boat and at least go to different places that way. But giving up everything and
I'm curious about like just about those people and their personalities, I guess. Like what in
hmm.
them makes them able to just do that.
Well, I just don't think that they okay, let me be careful with what I'm about to say. I'm going to probably say because of my sister. My sister is much more kind of not worried about things like I am. And I think that when you're not as much of a worrier and you're kind of more open and free that way, it allows you to have a little bit of extra space in your brain to allow for different things in your life that are not so, I don't know, like written out how like your life is supposed to be. You know, you get the house, you pay the mortgage, you pay these bills, you have the children, you get the dogs, da, 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 da. But no, not a lot of people really think about dropping everything. And it takes a certain mentality, I think, to really just not like okay, so there's a man, don't kill me, that I watch on TikTok. Oh my God, I'm cracking myself up. But it's called The Man with the Pot. And I'm not talking about weed. I'm talking about an actual cast iron pot
Okay.
where the man lives outdoors and he's a cook. And he left that crazy hustle and bustle life of being a chef. And he cooks. And all of his videos, they don't show him at all. They just show the spices, the meats, the fire, how he cuts down certain like branches and trees and stuff so he can put the cast iron pots, leveled so that they're under the fire. And there's this thing on TikTok called ASMR, which
Oh
is
yeah.
like something, right? Something to do with certain sounds. And all you hear is like the kindling cracking, and you hear the sound of the sauteing of the onions, and you hear the plopping of the butter. It is so relaxing. But this man is now spending his life doing TikTok, and he's got a huge following, and he's outdoors. He lives like I think in a camper, and all of the food. Obviously, he has to. He doesn't like kill the animals. He obviously goes to the
Right.
supermarket,
But
but it's so cool how he has all of these like cool things that you can make outdoors where you don't need a kitchen. And people like that are just so functional that way. I'd be like, where's my exhaust fan? Or,
yes.
I don't know, but I'll actually send you the link. I think it's called The Man or A Man with a Pot.
Man.
It's a man with a pot, the pot. I don't freaking know, but it's something like that. If you like go to search on TikTok and you put something like that in, you'll
Find
find
him.
it.
Okay.
But there's also other people that I follow on there that just live in their RVs and they
Yes.
wake up in the morning they show them making coffee, like either in their little RV kitchen. I'm not talking big
No,
RVs here. I'm
like little
talking
tiny things.
little tiny
Yeah,
things, enough to sleep
I
in.
watch a girl
But
that lives in a van. And
oh, that's cool.
her TikTok starts off with her buying and renovating this van to be a living space. And she just travels around in her van and lives in this van.
See, that's cool. And I've seen people who have redone old school buses to live in.
Yes. I think
That's pretty
I
cool.
think I think it takes like a certain kind of person who's not worried about the future to just
I think so. Yeah, I think
do
that
that.
when you kind of have that, when you were saying laissez-faire attitude,
Hmm.
I think that you're born with that side of that personality where you just don't give a shit as much as other people do. And I would love to live like that on and off. Like
Yeah.
being able to know, here's my RV,
And I'm gonna
but here's
go
my
for a
house.
couple months and then I'm gonna come home.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun, and it would actually challenge you to where you would have to learn how to live in a confined space and utilize what you have there. I mean, it's really like it's a mobile home. There's really no difference, but you don't have as much room. No, I'm curious about that too. Do you have any more?
Um, like people who are fearless. Think most of my curiosities are about like other people, like how some people are fearless and they'll just do anything, like physically, like they jump off of planes and mountains and do all
Yeah.
wild stuff, and then they don't understand how other people are afraid of it. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious as to how their minds work.
Well, how their minds work, I think, about having such adrenaline pumping through them is exactly the same way we're thinking about aren't you afraid to die?
Uh,
It's opposite thoughts, but they're just as strong as one another,
yeah. Okay.
right?
I,
But I really do want to do that though. I have been wanting to jump out of a plane for so long. I just am scared shitless.
Because so I'm so afraid of heights. And I just know, but and I almost looked into getting it from because Mark wants to do it as well. Like, I mean, but he's one of those fearless ones. He'll
Right.
like climb on the mountain and jump out of the plane. And so
Oh my God.
I was like, well, I guess I'll go with him because I know myself. Once I get in the plane and I'm up there, I have to do it.
Is there something that you could maybe do prior to it to kind of get you
You know,
ready for
I
it?
think, maybe when COVID is more under control, they have those indoor skydiving places where you go
Yes,
and
yes.
you're not up high, but you'll still have the feeling of falling. So maybe,
My son did that, and let me
yeah,
tell you, it was pretty cool.
that's
It's like you're inside
really
this
cool.
tube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at
So you
least you'd
could do
have
that.
that like feeling of weightlessness and like that falling
Sure.
sensation,
Oh God. Oh God. That's the thing that kills me, the falling sensation.
right?
I can't. I just uh even and because of COVID, I would want to obviously do it in tandem, and I can't have someone on my back right now.
Well, so when you first go, don't they?
I mean, if he's cute,
I
maybe, but
I
no,
think
I'm
they
kidding.
require like for your
Oh,
first couple months,
maybe.
you have to be strapped to someone
Probably. You're probably right.
because
Yeah.
I would think that would be like dangerous. I mean, I don't.
Liability
Right, it's a
to the
liability. Like,
company.
what if you panic and
Well,
uh,
sure.
you're panicking, and so then you're like, which one do I pull or whatever? So then they
Mm.
have someone to help you. So that's
Well, sure. That makes sense. I don't know. You know what, Rhonda? I think that when you start to get out of your comfort zone, even taking baby steps, you get closer to what you're afraid. And I know you're afraid of heights. Maybe even doing some indoor rock climbing.
oh, you know what? I have done indoor rock climbing, and I've done it a couple times. And the first time, someone had to come up to the top and get me.
Oh
Yes,
no, Rhonda.
one of the people that worked
Oh
there had to come up there and help me down. And
You
so
looked down, didn't you?
I could, yeah, I did, and I could not get down.
No.
So the second time, I only would go up halfway up the wall.
Oh.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, even we've gone hiking out here, and when I feel like it's getting too high, and I look over the edge, I look at that ledge, and they're clearly defined paths. Like
Yeah.
we're not mountain climbing; we're walking on clearly defined paths in state and federal parks.
Yeah.
But I will crawl and sit down, and
Oh,
I started crying the last time we went because I don't think and I don't think Mark and my son knew just how afraid I was. And when I started crying, they were like, just stay right there. We'll
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we'll come back and get you. It's fine. Don't make yourself because you're way too scared.
I think it's very hard for people who are not a certain way to understand why people are a
Yes,
certain way. And then those very same people, like you, would be like, how can't you be scared?
right.
And I get it. But I'm glad at least they understood, that, this is not,
Right.
not something you
She's not
like
just
to
a
do.
little afraid.
Oh, poor
She's
thing.
not laying
No,
down, hugging a rock, crying.
yeah, that is a realistic, um, horrible fear
It
that,
is.
well, not just that, but there's other fears, but I'm just saying it is so debilitating to you
It is.
that it just can make things difficult. That's why you stay away. But you remember, our last podcast or the one before that, we were talking about, when I went to that group, that OCD group, and there were people that were just
Yeah.
really okay. There was someone who was afraid of heights, and but loved doing all of these adventurous things. And he would obsess every single step and just be questioning every single thing that could be happening, that it made him have to stop what he enjoyed. And he joined the class to help him, and the doctor individually, to help him, kind of conquer his fears. But it wasn't just a fear thing. It was the obsession, the constant obsession of like having to grab onto like certain rocks or certain stones, or put his feet in a certain position that would stop him from climbing, because these obsessive compulsions would take over. But he found out that those obsessive compulsions were tied into his fear,
Oh,
and that once he was able to kind of put those compulsions at bay, it made it a lot easier for him to do what he wanted to do, even though he was fearful. But it stopped the thought process of the whole thing. And I remember thinking, oh my God, because obviously I remember this to this day, that is that really what fear is about? That it's your subconscious just constantly thinking about all the bad things that can
it is.
happen, and that's what overtakes
Yeah,
you.
it does. It overtakes you. My my therapist taught me there's something called the cognitive cycle, and so
Hmm.
it's like your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and it's a triangle, and you have to break it, like, because she said, she taught me, you can't control your feelings, like feelings just happen, but you can control your thoughts and actions. So that's where you have to break it. You have
Okay.
you have to stop and be like, this is not a rational thought. And then,
Well, here we go again with the
yeah,
rational and
she
irrational.
said, because when you break the thoughts, then your feelings will change about it.
It's very true. And once you can kind of get yourself into that cycle, and you can break the habit of just thinking about
Yes.
you're just not allowing yourself to think about it. It gets easier and easier every time.
Yep.
You
You
know,
just have to
I'm
remind yourself, like, that those thoughts are not rational, and those feelings, that fear is not, it's not rational. It's you're afraid.
nothing to fear but fear itself, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I tell myself all the time, fear is a liar. That's my
Mm,
little sort of mantra. Your fear is a liar when I'm having those irrational thoughts.
yeah, that's good. It's good that
It,
you have a mantra.
it takes
I
a lot
hope
of
that.
practice, though. It really.
Oh, I know. I did it. It took me a very long time when I was seeing the therapist to really change. When you are now in your early 20s, and you're noticing things that you're not too happy about with yourself, and you're afraid it's just going to get worse, and your dad has depression and anxiety, and your mom has OCD, and you're like, oh shit.
Right. Like,
Like,
where
I'm
are we going
doomed,
to go?
right?
Yep.
Well, I just was being, proactive, and wanted to find a way to kind of deter my DNA from getting the best of me. And I wasn't bad. I didn't need to see a therapist. I was just trying to be proactive. I wanted to be a good mom. I wanted to be a good wife. I wanted to have a good life, and I didn't want things to take over me like they did with my parents, and not be able to enjoy even just downtime, instead of obsessing like, oh my God, I need to be doing something. So I went to him, and it was such an eye-opening experience, and I was able to just I realized that it was actually the best thing I did, because going in there saying, I probably don't need you, but then realizing I did, because there were certain things about me that I really did want to change. But like you were saying before, it was so hard, because I was saying I was in my 20s, or my early 20s. I'm already done. Like my personality is formed. All of my idiosyncrasies are formed. So I have to perform like almost a 180. And that was the hardest thing, to stop thinking a certain way that you've been thinking like for 20 years, or to, turn around the things that you've been doing. Oh my God. But once I learned how to do it, and in the beginning, Rhonda, was so hard to like stop the thought process. But then the more you do it, the quicker and easier it is. And the easier it is for you to just move on from that thought process. And it helped a lot. It helped with my future also, you know? And I recommend a behavior therapist for everybody in the entire
Me too. And
universe.
I think people get like, they're probably like, quit telling everyone they need to learn, they need to do therapy and learn these like cognitive behavioral therapy skills, or DBT skills. And I'm like, no, they're really helpful for everyone.
But it's for everyone. It doesn't mean that you have issues. It doesn't mean that you're messed up. It makes you a better person, and a better person to deal with within yourself. You don't realize, no one's perfect.
No.
And there are there are flaws about all of us I know that there's flaws in me that I still don't like. And there's flaws in everybody, but there's no reason why you can't make yourself better in any way. And I advise it to everyone, but for me, I'm advising like behavioral therapists, being able to assess yourself and come to the realization that, oh, wow, I really am like this, or, oh, wow, I really do a lot of this. And it's almost kind of like a spiritual feeling when you realize it. Oh shit, I think I need to change this, and being able to take back the control of, changing things where you might not have been able to do it in the past.
I think that's it. It makes me feel more in control.
Right? And isn't that such a powerful feeling that you are actually in control of your brain instead of vice versa?
Yes.
I think it's such a powerful tool.
It's exhausting when you feel like you have no control.
And do you ever find yourself almost spiraling when you kind of get caught in that spiral? Like when you're thinking about something too much and then you catch yourself and you're like, okay, I need to stop, but then it's hard to stop.
Yep.
That's when those cognitive behaviors really come into play and can help.
You have skills to get your mind back on track.
Absolutely. And not everybody has that. And you can't always just say to your brain, stop. You just can't. You have to learn how to change your behavior and start kind of thinking about other things. And once you can master that, I am telling you, it's like the parting of the Red Sea. Everything just
It is. It's like, I don't know. I just feel so much better with it, which is why
and that's all that matters, how you feel, not how anyone else feels. It's how you're feeling and why you're doing it and for what reason. We all have to take care of ourselves mentally. And I just think that people kind of succumb to who they are and how they are, and that's it. They just accept it. And I think there's always room for improvement,
I think so too.
So if there's nothing else, I suppose that this is the end of our podcast.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, this was fun.
It was fun.
I always have fun with you, Rhonda. So please tell everybody how they can get in contact with you and listen to your podcast.
So my username on pretty much all social media is just the Rhonda Marie. And my podcast is called An Accidentally Beautiful Life. So if you just search that in, it will pop right up for you.
Okay, and tell people about your clothing line, your website.
I have Clothesline Apparel Company. The website is clotheslineapparelcompany.com. And we do graphic tees, and we're starting to do some more stuff, accessories and things that'll be available on the website soon.
Perfect. And I am Julie Schrager, Nothing But Julie podcast. You can hear me wherever and whenever, and Nothing But Julie on all social media as well. So feel free to subscribe and like. We do this every Thursday, except for last Thursday. We had a little bit of a break in the holidays. So we hope that you really enjoyed this podcast and all of our podcasts, and enjoy your weekend. All right, Rhonda, you have a great weekend. Take care.
You too. Bye.